all of history would be different in Western civilization, because he is the person who builds the structure that will hold Europe together for all of the Middle Ages. It's his extraordinary and unexpected connection between France and the Pope in Rome that creates the structure of the world that these people will live in the 1000s, 1100s, 1200s, 1300s, and 1400s. Here is a painting that's in Rome on a wall in San Giovanni, and there is Charlemagne and Pope Leo both kneeling at the foot of St. Peter's. And so this little decoration is a way of saying, well, the most important thing that happened in our lifetime is this, which is December 25th, the year 800, the coronation of Charlemagne in St. Peter's. Now, what was he crowned? He's the king of the Franks. What's he doing in Italy and what's he doing in Rome? Well, in this connection between the Christian church and the Pope and the Franks, he is invited into Italy, which he accepts. He comes to Rome. He becomes a friend of the Pope. And on this particular day, Christmas Day, 800, they're all in St. Peter's for a Holy Mass. And the Pope steps over and puts on his head this crown and calls him Holy Roman Emperor. Meaning that here and now, this day, I, as the leader of Rome, because he was the religious leader and there wasn't anybody else, I am going to give you the crown of the old Roman emperors. I'm going to make you now our emperor in this ceremony. You are, of course, a French king. I am an Italian pope. I'm here in Italy. But you're coming here, and together we're going to build a bridge that will unify all of Europe the way it used to be. Get it? The way Rome unified all of Europe. Now we're going to unify it again. And that's the meaning of the scene that you see right here. The coronation of Charlemagne, Holy Roman Emperor. So the idea is that Charles the Great will be the Christian emperor successor to Romulus Augustulus. So now you've started it up again. Now you have a new emperor back on the chair in Rome, up on the Capitol, and it is this man, Charlemagne. And nothing is ever the same again, because as he builds this, he's building an institution that will go all the way through the Middle Ages called the Holy Roman Empire. The Holy Roman Empire. And the Holy Roman Emperor and the Pope will work together to unify Christianity. That's the idea, that the Holy Roman Emperor and the Pope in Rome will work together. And it lasts for 1,000 years. It lasts to 1806 when Napoleon shuts it down. But until then, you have an emperor. Now, Voltaire said that the Holy Roman Empire was neither holy, nor Roman, nor an empire. And it's one of the funniest things anybody ever said, because it's completely true. On the other hand, it was something. It was something. And what it was an idea. It was an idea of the unity of Christendom. It was the idea of holding all the states together, and that they needed somebody at the top. They needed a secular person at the top, Charlemagne, and they needed a religious person, the Pope, and that the two of them would work together. That was the idea. And it never died. So in the 1000s it comes back, the 1100s it comes back, the 1200s it comes back. There's always an emperor, and there's always a new pope and a new emperor, and they're always meeting, and they're always going to Rome, and they get a crown again. So it lasts all the way through the Middle Ages. And for Dante in 1300, and we're going to read Dante, we're going to talk about Dante. So for Dante in 1300, for him, he believed completely and totally that the real twin heads, the leaders, were these two men, the Pope and the Emperor, that they were the real leaders of Christendom. So that's the reality of the world that will go through the 800s and the 900s. Here's the Frankish kingdom. Here's a good map, which just gives you an idea of how big it is. It is also nice because you can see where the capital was. It started out in the Loire Valley, But then it moved because of Charlemagne and because of adding territory to his empire, like Saxony at the top of the map. It became more German because he added Saxony and Bavaria. So he moved his capital to Aachen, which is on the Rhine. You see the red, see it up there at the top? Aachen, Aachen. Here's a nice map of Europe at the death of Charles the Great, the empire of Charles the Great, and you can see where everybody is. And that includes, of course, these new English empires in England, new states. What we want to mention about Charlemagne is his minister of culture, Alcuin, A-L-C-U-I-N. He was English. He came from York, and I'm going to take you there right now. And he is one of the most important people ever to live because he becomes Charlemagne's head of education, and Charlemagne gives him the job of reproducing all the great works of classical culture right now quick. So he was to hire copyists and set up libraries and set up monastic copy centers, and soon, quick as you could, he wanted copies made of the great works because he knew they would disappear, and he was exactly right. So almost all the books of the classical world that have survived to us come to us through the Carolingians. In many cases, that's the oldest manuscript we have of a major work, say Livy from Rome. That's it. So thanks to Charlemagne and Alcuin, that entire world survives. And now let's go back to England where Alcuin came from, and Boniface and Patrick. So you should realize now as we talk about this period, the 6th, the 7th, and 800s, that this little tiny set of islands was making a huge contribution back to mainland Europe, France, and Germany. And there's your map of England in the 700s. And here's just a little more specific map, because the part of England that will matter right now is Northumbria. You can see that's way up in the north. That's York. And it's Northumbria that is going to be the origin of the whole world of York and the king of Northumbria. So this is an English king, but just part of England, all the way up in the north. And it's through King Oswald of Northumbria and his Christian helpers, and particularly like this place, Lindisfarne, that's the castle of Lindisfarne, where some of the greatest works of European Christendom are created. So there's the Lindisfarne castle, and there's the castle and the abbey, and here are some of those great books that come from the workshops of these very places. All of this goes back to York, which was the head of the king of Northumbria. That's where he lived. That's the Cathedral of York now. And it was there that Alcuin grew up and studied and learned his classical work, and then carried it back to Europe. And it was in some of the little churches around York that other great Christians in this period, like the Venerable Bede, that's him right there, who wrote a history of the English church, lived, and in some of the other little churches nearby. All of this is part of the world of North England, of the kingdom of Northumbria. So it's like the Franks, it's like the Visigoths in Spain. But here, this little northern part of England, in this one kingdom of Northumbria, based at York, creates all these churches and all these learned men. And then those men go back to the continent and carry their learning with them, like Boniface. So Boniface starts here, Alcuin starts here, and all of it can be traced to places like this, Whitby Abbey, where in 664, there it is. Isn't that beautiful? There's Whitby Abbey. You can visit that. And at Whitby Abbey in 664, they held a synod of all the Christians, and they agreed they would be loyal to Rome. So that's absolutely critical. Synod of Whitby, 664, you have the connection to Rome. And so here, this northern part of England joins the rest of Europe, joins France, joins Germany, and will now be part of this huge Holy Roman Empire, Holy Roman Catholic Church, all unified as it goes forth to the continent and to spread the word. So one can look at these beautiful ruins of the Abbey of Whitby and think of the meeting in 664, and think of the import of that that Rome carried, that this is a continuation of Rome. And then, of course, as you know, it's all destroyed. So it's all destroyed in the 800s and 900s. The mean, stinky Scandinavian invaders, all those Danes and those Norwegians and those mean, stinky Scandinavians, come sweeping down on their boats and push in and destroy Lindisfarne. But just for that moment, it's a creative center, and it's strong enough to send its message out. And of all those people, Boniface is maybe the most important, and Alcuin is the second most important, to go back to Europe and teach them about classical civilization. Ooh, don't you love that? Look at the moon over the abbey, look at the moon over the abbey. Isn't that great?